Today I want to tell you a story about the Avata, poor decisions, and a whole lot of blood. But it wasn't me. I've still got all my fingers. It was my buddy Kris, but he's not the type to sit around and whine about it. He's the type that makes lemonade out of lemons and wants to teach you something so you don't make the same mistake. Isn't that right, Kris?
That's right.
So Kris, what the heck happened?
So I was testing out a feature on the Avata, which I saw in the manual called Emergency Propeller Stop. And it's activated by doing the CSC, or Combination Stick Command. And it's supposed to let you stop the motors if you have an emergency. And so I decided to test that feature out in a controlled environment before I actually needed to use it.
Okay, smart.
So I enabled the CSC option in the menu. And in normal mode, I hover the drone, I move the sticks down and in. The drone descended for about 2 seconds, and then the motors cut off and it fell to the ground.
Okay.
So it worked.
So you're just hovering a few feet above the ground, you pull the sticks down and in, it starts descending, and then it just cuts and drops to the ground.
Right. But,
Over grass, no harm done.
So yes, but I had to be like 20 feet in the air, because if it was a few feet over the ground, it would just descend into the ground.
Oh, I see.
So then I thought, okay.
That was in normal mode.
That was in normal mode, so stabilized mode. But I usually fly in manual mode. So I decided to see if I can do the same thing in manual mode. And reading through the owner's manual, I didn't see any reference to having to be in normal mode. So I put the drone into manual mode, I did the stick command, and of course the drone went upside down, straight into the grass, and the motors were going crazy, cutting up leaves and debris. And because the Avata is so loud, I kind of was in a panic mode. And
you got normal mode, acro mode, and then panic mode. You went into panic mode.
I went into panic mode. And so I decided to do the CSC command even after it crashed, just to make sure the motors stopped. And after a few seconds, the motors were still
Yeah, because it's in manual mode and it's thinking that when you pull it down and in, it's thinking you want to yaw right with a little less throttle and pitch and roll left and back or something.
Right.
It's taking that as a direction to go, not a direction to stop.
Exactly. And so I decided to flip into normal mode because it's upside down and normal mode doesn't work upside down. And so the motors would stop. So I flipped the switch and it still would not go off. It was just going crazy, chewing up leaves in the grass. So I thought, well, maybe it's not upside down enough. So I walked over to it and I thought, I'll just go gently pick it up and make sure that it's completely upside down so the motors stopped. So as I grabbed it, because the temperature was cold, my fingers didn't have as much dexterity, and the drone was spinning like crazy.
It was moving,
It was
flopping
moving
around.
So as soon as I picked it up, my fingers slipped and went straight into the propellers. Then I saw the amount of blood that I was losing on the drone and decided I should probably let go. And so I did, and the drone fell to the ground, still going crazy. Now I
Well, it had tasted blood at this point, so it was like, it was hungry.
Yeah, and I realized that my finger was probably in bad shape. I didn't see the tip of my finger or part of my fingernail anymore. I thought, okay, I have to get the drone to stop. I realized that I was still in manual mode, even though I hit the switch, because I hit the switch the wrong way. So I just hit back into manual mode because I was in a
panic.
I was
You
in
were
a
in
panic.
panic mode.
Yeah. And once I switched back into normal mode, the drone slowed down and eventually stopped.
So it actually kind of sliced off a bit of the tip of your finger. And that was pretty painful, I imagine. And a lot of blood. You just put a Band-Aid on it and kept flying?
I did actually keep flying because I wanted to get to the bottom of what happened. This time, I grabbed the drone, flipped it upside down, still in manual mode, did the stick command with my other hand, and it just would not turn off. So I realized that double tapping the start-stop button is the only way to turn off the drone in manual mode.
So the emergency stick command does not work in acro mode. So that's the bottom line.
That's basically the takeaway from this whole experience.
And I think, we've talked about it a little bit. It sort of makes sense because if you're doing maneuvers and you're trying to fly freestyle or doing something in acro mode, you could very well do that at some point, and you wouldn't want to accidentally put it into emergency stop when you just meant to do some sort of a flip or a roll or a dive or something like that. And so, so I could see where that would be the case. So the takeaway from this is if you're in manual mode, double tap the stop button to stop it as well as to start it. But if you get an emergency, double tap. And if you're in normal mode, then you can do, and you have this feature turned on, then you can do the down and in to stop it.
Right. I don't believe the manual specified you had to be in normal mode for the emergency propeller stop to work.
It kind of assumed that you would know that.
I guess.
Yeah,
but,
which
now I do know.
Isn't right or wrong, it just is. So don't assume anything. I guess the next thing to take away too from this video is, this looks like a cute little lump of a drone. I mean, it's got some heft to it, but it doesn't really look like it could hurt you much because it's got the guarded propellers. But if you do put your finger in there, these props are spinning very, very fast. They are quite sharp, little pieces of plastic. They're like little plastic knives, really, cutting through the air. And you can do some damage to your finger. I mean, it's not insignificant. So don't underestimate the potential to hurt yourself or to hurt somebody else with the propellers of this drone. You should always be careful around it. Treat it like a loaded drone.
Yes, that's right. And even though the propellers were spinning, the other way to slice you, my finger was not getting sliced off. It was more getting ground up.
Yeah.
So it's still...
You're actually probably kind of lucky in that regard because the other way might have been even worse. So I guess the final thoughts on this, Kris, what's your takeaway from your little run-in with the Avata's propeller blades in your finger?
So my takeaway is that emergency stick command is only for normal or sport mode. And when in manual mode, double tap should
become muscle memory.
Yeah.
It's got to be in your brain. If you're flying this thing in acro, that double tap is going to be the way to stop it if it flips over or if it's getting into trouble anyway.
Exactly.
Let us know if you've ever had an incident with the Avata and a finger or any other appendage. We'd love to hear about it in the comments below. And we're not wishing that on anyone. We're hoping people can avoid it, but we love to hear your comments and we appreciate you watching. And another reason you should not fly alone, right, Kris?
That's right. Oh my goodness.